ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भाम्
ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भाम्
शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम्
शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम्
अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम्
अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम्
वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्
वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्।
ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः
ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः
भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः
भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः
स्थिरैरङ्गैः सुष्ठुवागुंसस्तनूभिः
स्थिरैरङ्गैः सुष्ठुवागुंसस्तनूभिः
व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः
व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः
स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः
स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः
स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः
स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः
स्वस्ति न तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः
स्वस्ति नः साक्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः
स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु
स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु।
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
आविसन्निहितम् गुहाचरं नाम महत्पदमत्र एतत् समर्पितम् येजत् प्राणन्निमिषच्च यदेजत् जानत सदसद्वरेण्यम् परं विज्ञानात् यद्वरिष्ठं प्रजानाम् So we were actually looking at the first khanda of the second Mundaka. Now we are going to continue to the next part or next khanda. So what we saw in the previous khanda was that Brahman was revealed as all that is here. So that was actually summarized in the last verse also very nicely. Purusha eva idam vishwam. So when we say Purusha eva idam vishwam, all that is here is Purusha. So here actually the teaching methodology which we are using to reveal this Atma as Brahman is very clear. So when we say there is only Purusha here, this is actually like saying there is only rope here. So when we say the snake is the rope, that is actually what we call as Badhayam Samanadi Karanyam. So it actually negates whatever we think is idam and which is we think that it is independently real something exists as idam and aham, two different things, subject and object. So now all these things, the knower, the known, the knowledge, so that we call as Triputi. Okay. So all these things are nothing but this Purusha. So initially, if you see at the beginning of this Khanda, what the Upanishad was doing was it was showing each and everything has come from this Brahman alone. So it was revealing the Brahman as the Upadana Karana for everything. So when it was revealing it as the Upadana Karana, again we have to understand that the Brahma is a Vivarta Upadana Karanam. That means even though Brahman is manifest as all these things, right from Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Apaha, all the Bhutas, all the beings, all our Indriyas, all the Indriya Vishayas, like that it was going in lot of detail. Even the Lokas, Swarga Loka, different Lokas, and all the Vaidika Karma. So all the sadhana and sadhya which we have in this Jagat are all revealed as something which has come from this Brahman. Brahman alone is the cause of everything. So when Brahman is revealed as the Upadana Karana of everything, it doesn't mean that Brahman has become this world, means only world is there, Brahman is not there anymore. It's not like the milk has become curd. So when the milk becomes the curd, we understand that it is Parinami Upadana Karanam. That means whatever was there is no more there. Milk was there, then it has become curd, means there is no more milk, only curd is there. But here we are not talking about Brahman in the same manner. That has to be very clear to us. Brahman being itself without losing its nature, only it is manifest as this entire creation. So that is shown because we have to actually understand that Brahman is everything. All the forms are nothing but Brahman. Okay. But again, in its very nature, when we look at the Swarupa of Brahman, in fact, it does not have any forms at all. None of these forms are really Brahman, because all these forms are only Mithya, because they are all the effects of Brahman. Brahman is the cause, that alone is Satyam. All these forms are only purely Namarupa, they are all names and forms. They don't have an independent reality of their own. So they are all Mithya, so they don't really count at the end of the day. What is there really is Brahman alone. And by its very nature, Brahman is nothing but it is you. It is the consciousness. So the same consciousness, the Chaitanyam, is appearing as awareness in your mind. When it appears as the awareness in your mind, it becomes the subject. Then through that mind, the awareness then reveals to you sense objects and different objects which are perceived through different senses. Then through inference also we learn many things. So all the objects of our knowledge are revealed by this awareness. So the awareness also is consciousness. All the objects which are revealed by this awareness are also nothing but the same Chaitanyam. That's what we have to understand. That is what the Upanishad is revealing by saying that everything that is manifest here as this is nothing but this Purusha or this Brahman. Brahman alone is the cause of everything. That has to be very clearly understood. So both the subject, the object, all that is here is Brahman. Brahman alone is the invariable in every cognition. When I say this is a part, now this also is Brahman. The isness itself is Brahman actually. The existence we think that actually in language we use existence as an adjective. We say existent pot, but that itself is a misunderstanding or a wrong notion, because existence is what is there, that is Satyam. Pot is something which comes and goes, it is Mithya, it is only a name and form. So actually we have to say potty existence, but we don't say like that. So language is also actually putting us in bondage. In the way we use the language, we are actually getting confused. But what we have to understand here is this existence is Brahman. Pot is only a name and form, and in one cognition you have a pot consciousness. Consciousness is there. Then if you turn your head around, you will have some other consciousness, correct? You will have a table consciousness, you have a chair consciousness. Like that, this consciousness is, pot consciousness is, table consciousness is, that is another cognition. Chair consciousness is, that is another cognition. Then you have some other fruit on the table, let us say. So orange consciousness is, apple consciousness is. Like this, different cognition are taking place. Now in this, what we have to understand is the names and forms are all variable. Pot comes and goes along with the pot cognition, but consciousness is the invariable in every cognition. Clay comes and goes, pot comes and goes, apple comes and goes, orange comes and goes. These are all names and forms, but consciousness is, that is this Sat and Chit. Sat Chit Atma is the invariable, and that which is invariable, that which is always there. So we say Trikale api tishtati in Sanskritam, that which is there in all periods of time. In fact, that which is beyond space time, really, that's what we say as that which is there in all periods of time. That alone is Satyam, that which is there always, that which is beyond space time, and that is the Satchid Atma, that is you, that alone is Satyam. All other things are really Mithya. So the experiencer and the experienced, the subject and the object, all that is here is Brahman. So the status of being a subject also is really Mithya. That also you have to understand. Because only when an object is there to be cognized, the Satchidatma becomes a subject. That too when it is manifest as awareness in your antakarana, in your mind. But what happens in sleep, the mind is the one which actually sleeps. Understand, Atma never sleeps. In fact, Mundaka-Upanishad explicitly says, Drashtuhu drishtehe viparilopaha nasti. Okay, the consciousness never extinguishes. It never goes away. It is always there. That is why we can get up in the morning and say, I slept well. That is called, we are able to recollect it. Okay. So I slept well or I did not sleep well and all that. But basically in sleep, the mind has gone to sleep. The mind is not available for the Chaitanya Atma to manifest as awareness, as a subject. And there are no objects also. If there is no subject, there is no object. But when you wake up, both the subject and the object are there. In fact, they are mutually dependent. Without there being any objects, you cannot have the status of being a subject. Like if there are no students, there cannot be any teacher, correct? Of course, I can still be talking with nobody else also in the WebEx. But then only when there are students, even a guru gets the status of being a teacher. Otherwise, guru is guru, that's all. Can be a Mauna guru. So here, what we have to understand is, we have to understand this duality which is there is mithya. And in this, the more difficult thing to understand is that your very own individuality also is a mithya. Understand that, because the individuality also comes and goes. If your individuality is satyam, it has to be there even in deep sleep. It has to be always there. But I am this individual, I am this jiva, I am the one who is there in a particular body. All these things are also mithya. You should be able to see that. Because all your problems are nothing but the problems of the individual. Jiva alone is alpa from whichever standpoint you look at it. We have alpa shakti. Our mind also has only alpa jnanam. Intellect and mind has its own limitations. Body has its own limitations. So every which way you look at yourself as an individual, you are limited. And that is good enough for you to have all sorts of problems. The world is so big and I am so limited. So that problem, if you have to cross, okay, if you have to resolve, means not only is the world mithya, okay, in fact many physicists easily understand the world as mithya, because even if we reduce everything to quantum level and all that, 98% is space or 99% is space. That's what they say. The nucleus and the electrons which are going around is really very small. It doesn't take up much. So everything are subatomic particles, means how did this world, variegated world, come up then? It's all again some kind of maya. That's what we call as maya, correct? So we can reduce this whole world to particles and all that. But in a macro sense, it is all different. At a quantum level, it is all reduced to a few particles. And even there, most of it is space. So that means what is there really? There is nothing is, you can't call anything as real, whatever we are cognizing here. So that part is easy to understand, that all that we see here is mithya, can be understood even by a modern scientist. But more difficult is your individuality also is mithya. That is something you have to actually work on, because we take ourselves for granted. We always, there is also an habitual tendency to take ourselves as an individual. But whenever you take yourself as an individual, you are actually, it is like the elephant putting the mud on its own head. Understand that. You are taking all the problems of the individual, but you are not really the individual. You are the Sachidatma. You are Brahman. So that is what is being revealed here beautifully by the Shruti. First it does Adhyaropa by showing that all that is here is nothing but Brahman. Everything has come from Brahman alone. Okay, so Brahman, all the forms are Brahman. Then finally what it says, only Brahman alone is there. All the forms are nothing but Mithya. So forms are not there really. So Badayam Samanadhikaranyam it does. That means it's an Apavada. So from that what we understand very clearly is all forms are Brahman, but Brahman by its very nature is none of these forms. If Brahman has a particular form, then it will become limited. Understand that. It cannot be Ananta. Upanishad itself reveals the Brahman as Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. So the Anantam is a very important thing. Brahman is Anantam. That Anantam itself is Ananda actually, because if it is Anantam, if Atma is Ananta, means it is not wanting in any respects. And if you are not a wanting person, then that Swarupa is really the Ananda Swarupa. So when we have this teaching, it is not about you becoming happy. The teaching is you are the very happiness. Your very nature is nothing but Ananda. Anandoham is different from I become Ananda or I become happy. Understand that. So this is an important thing. So by its very nature, Brahman is these forms. If you look at the clay as clay, in your appreciation of clay, there is no pot or there is no spoon. So none of the forms really count. But when you look at a clay pot, still a clay pot is always a clay pot. Understand? Without clay, there is no pot. Without clay, there is no spoon or a plate, let us say. So the forms are all Brahman, but Brahman by its very nature is not any one of these forms. It exists as it is. That is the understanding you should have. That's why this is a subtle thing, and that's why Shruti is using this methodology of Adhyaropa and Apavada. Only by doing Adhyaropa and Apavada, this thing can be taught clearly. So that's what has been done. In fact, the same thing Shruti is continuing here also, because again in Vedanta Shastra, Punarukti is not a dosha. The same subject matter, because it is subtle, Sukshmatvat, it can be repeated again and again in different ways, because some people may understand if I explain it in one manner, but some others may understand if I use a different analogy or explain it in a different way. So Shastra in its own Karunya, only we have to say, in its own kindness, Shruti is again starting another section and explaining the same topic using different words and different analogies and all that. Is that clear? So in this, we have this first verse here, Avihi. So the word Avihi, in fact, it's a particle, it's an indeclinable in Sanskrit grammar. Normally it comes along with words like Avirbhutam, like that. So Avirbhutam means something has appeared, manifest. Okay. But here Avihi has come by itself, means it's like a blessing. So here in fact the meaning of this indeclinable is the Atma is self-evident. Okay. So it is the Atma is self-evident and self-existent. It is manifest as in each and every cognition. That is what is indicated by the word Avihi. So Avihi Sannihitam. Sannihitam means what? Near to you, very, very near to you. So what is it that is very near to you? The Brahman is manifest as the awareness in your mind, correct? So Brahman manifests as the awareness in his mind, means it is not away from you. Whether you look upon the subject, that is also Brahman. Whether you look upon the object, that is also Brahman alone. So it is not away from you at any point in time. So the self-existent, self-revealing Brahman alone is present as the Jiva, the individual. So it is there shining as the experiencer of all the sense objects. So in fact, even in Gita, Bhagavan beautifully says, Ashnan, Gachan, Swapan, like that and all. So whether you are eating, there also Brahman is there. Whether you are hearing a sound, that is also experienced by Brahman. So the experiencing Jiva also is Brahman. The experienced sense object also is Brahman. So you are the experiencer, and that experiencer is nothing but this Brahman, experiencer of color, taste, or even the one who is aware that there is a thought in one's own mind. That person also is nothing but this Brahman or Atma alone. So it is always present as this thought or I thought, correct? So this is a pot, or this is an apple. In that also, this also is Brahman, and Brahman alone is manifest as the apple. Then I see this apple. I know apple means the knower also is Brahman. So Brahman is there both as I thought and this thought, and it never is away from you. So it is the nearest. So it always remains as the Chaitanya. And it is there in every emotion, every thought also. See, even if you love something, so what is this love? Something is very pleasing to you, means that pleased self also is nothing but Brahman. So in fact, what we have to understand is, whatever is unconditionally loved, okay, that is the source of happiness, correct? Whatever is most unconditionally loved, that alone is the true source of happiness. So even the Upanishad in fact does an analysis. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, there is a Maitreyi Brahmanam is there. So in that Upanishad is very clear. It talks about that all that is here, they are not loved for their own sake, but for your sake, for the sake of the self alone. Even the wife is loved not for the sake of wife, but the sake of oneself alone. Even the husband is pleasing for the wife not because for the sake of the husband, but for oneself alone. Like that, it gives a huge list. So the idea being, which is what finally it says, Atmanastu Kamaya Sarvam Priyam Bhavati. So everything is pleasing or Priyam to one, all the things, anything it may be, only because it is pleasing to you as a person. It is pleasing to oneself. If it is not pleasing to oneself, then you will somehow get rid of it. So self alone is loved unconditionally. That means self itself has to be the source of happiness, correct? Because all other things are loved conditionally for the sake of oneself. But self is loved unconditionally, and that self has to be the source of happiness. That's why we say Atma itself is this happiness. Its very nature is Ananda, and that it is there. The Brahman or Atma is always there, Sannihitam. And Guhacharam. What is this Guhacharam? Now Guha means it is not a cave. Here, of course, the literal meaning of a Guha is cave. But in Shastra, Guha always means Buddhi. Understand that. So Atma is available in your Buddhi as awareness. So the Guha here refers to Buddhi alone. And Guha Charam means what? Charati. This Atma as though moves in your intellect, because there is a vritti, correct? So with each changing thought, Atma alone is revealing those thoughts also. It is moving along with the thoughts of your mind. So the invariable in every thought is this Atma. So it is as though moving along with your thoughts. That's why it is called Guhacharam. Okay, so in reality, Atma cannot move anywhere. But since all experiences such as seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, eating, whatever, so many experiences are there. In and through all these experiences, what is manifest is this Atma, this Brahman. So that's why it is Guhacharam. So without the invariable consciousness, no perception or cognition takes place, can take place. So even in beautifully it is told in Kenopanishad also, Pratibodha Viditam Matam. So this Atma is Bodham Bodham Prati Viditam, that which is known in each and every cognition, that alone is Atma. So the Atma reveals itself as consciousness is in every cognition, and that Atma is available in your intellect. It moves as though with each awareness, with each thought, with each experience. So that's why it is called Guhacharam Nama. Nama here means it is well known as Guhacharam. Okay, it is very well known. The self-evident Atma itself is well known as this with the word Guhacharam. Then Mahat Padam. So what is this Mahat Padam? So Padam means some abode and all they translate, or goal we can say. Okay, so Mahat means what here? Mahat means big. Okay, normally Mahat means big, but here we can consider Mahat as, so, or Parama Padam also we say, correct? So this Atma is the ultimate goal because it is limitless, correct? It is what we are seeking is the limitlessness itself. There cannot be anything more than this. So nobody can better what the Upanishad is offering you. It is offering you the very limitlessness itself. And if you don't know this, then in fact Kenopanishad again says Mahati Vinashtihi. So Iha Ched Avedit Ata Satyamasti Nachediha Vedin Mahati Vinashtihi. So if you don't manage to know yourself as this limitless, the loss is also limitless. The infinite itself you are losing. So this is the most exalted goal one can have in life, correct? All other Purushartha don't really have any meaning. Moksha alone is the Parama Purushartha. It is alone the Parama Padam or Mahat Padam. Nothing else comes anywhere near because this is the limitless. So Mahat Padam Atra Etat Samarpitam. So again here it is beauty. It's actually a Mahavakya. Okay, because everything is placed in this Brahman alone. That's what this Atra Etat Samarpitam it says. Because you see here, Ejat Pranan Nimishacha Yed Ejat Janata Sadasad Varenyam, like this. The next line is there. So all these things, whatever Atra Ejat Pranan Nimishacha means what? Whatever is existing here, correct? All the beings which are there, those which are actually living. Pranat means anything which is alive. Ejat means anything that moves. So anything which moves, anything which is alive. And Nimishat means anything which is closing its eyes, means also opening. Anything which closes and opens its eyes. Yedetat, all these things, Atra Samarpitam, Atra Brahmani. So all these things are nothing but they are all in this Brahman alone. They are all placed in this Brahman. They all resolve in this Brahman. And how did the line start? It started with Avihi. Avihi means the self-revealing Atma, which is the most Sannihitam, which is the most nearest. And that is nothing but this Brahman, where everything is resolved, where everything has its Adhisthana, so where everything can be placed. Anything which is moving, anything which is alive, anything which opens or closes its eyes, all of these things are in this Brahman alone. And that Brahman is nothing but Atma. That comes out very clearly in this particular verse. So this is a Mahavakya actually. It gives this identity, this equality. So that is the beauty here. So when we say anything which is moving, alive, you have to include both the waking and the dreaming, all the states of experience also, not just only in waking. So all the three states are also in this Brahman alone. Nothing is away from this Satchidatma, which is Brahman. All states of experiences, waking, dreaming, deep sleep, or anything in between, like a hypnotic trance or whatever, all of them are also in this Brahman alone. It is the knower, known and knowledge in any state. So this Atra Etat Samarpitam reveals that Brahman as the cause of everything, and when it says Avihi Sannihitam, it is actually talking about the self-existent and self-revealing Atma. And since both of these things are talked about in the same sentence, then there is a identity between Brahman and Atma also is established here. So again, Shruti in fact gives a analogy also. Araha iva rathanabhav. This analogy is given. So Araha means spokes, and Rathanabhav means in the hub of the chariot's wheel. So there is a hub in every wheel, and from there the different spokes go to the circumference of the wheel. So without the hub, the spokes cannot be there. They are all joined only to this hub. Similarly, Brahman alone is the hub here. Everything is joined or placed only in this Brahman. Like this, an analogy also is given sometimes. Okay. So that also gives another important thing in this analogy we can understand, which is whenever we talk about the samsara or movement and all that, all movement is there only in the circumference, correct? The center, which is the hub, never moves. The center is free of all this samsara. It is simply there, where everything is resolving into. It does not move by itself. It is there as it is. That also we can understand from this analogy. So that analogy also is given normally. So Atra etat samarpitam ejat pranan nimishatcha yedetad. And then further continuing here, sadasad varenyam. Okay. So sadasad varenyam means what? Sadasad here means sat and asat means that which have forms and those which do not have forms. So those which are formful and those objects which are formless, all of them are nothing but this Brahman alone. So that's what we have to understand here. That's why we have this Patikalinga also. See, in our religious forms also, all these Vedantic revelations are actually captured, you can say. They are, our religion and our culture is a container of this vision of Vedanta. That is the beauty for us. So when we have a Patikalinga, Patikalinga is supposed to have a form, but you can see through it, it is also formless. So like that, Brahman is both forms and formless. In fact, even the very concept of form or formless, everything is there only in the awareness of Brahman. But if you look at its very nature, it is neither form nor formless. So that is what we have to finally understand. So all these forms are all nothing but they are all only upadhi. Okay, upadhi, we have talked about upadhi. So we can look at Brahman through different upadhis. All upadhis are also Brahman alone. They don't have any independent existence. And when you look at the reality through a particular upadhi, then it looks limited. It looks as though it has a particular form. But when you remove the upadhi in your understanding and understand the nature of Brahman, then there is no form or anything. So that is the idea here. So we have to understand ourselves as the one who is manifest in this upadhi called this particular body, mind and sense complex. But the upadhi itself does not define my very reality. But we take ourselves as this upadhi. That is the whole problem. That is ignorance. When I place my eye on my body, when I place my eye in my mind, when I place my eye on my prana, on my karmendriya, jnanendriya, and then what happens? I take upon all the problems of these upadhis and I am suffering. But in reality, it is all upadhi alone. It does not define my reality. It is only as though coloring my perception about myself. So once we are clear about who we are and once we know ourselves as Shuddha Chaitanyam, devoid of any of these upadhis, then we are free. So this is very important here. We have to understand this Sat and Asat properly. Again, in some other context, the meaning for this Sat and Asat may be slightly different. To understand this, whenever we see words like Satyam or words like Sat and Asat, Satyam, Asatyam and all that, the context is very important. We have to see in which context it is used and accordingly we have to understand it. So here both Sat and Asat are part of the manifest world. Okay. So that's why we have to take the meaning as those which have forms and those which are formless within the manifest world. But the entire manifest world itself is Mithya and Brahman alone is Satyam. So when we talk about Sat and Asat as Satyam and Mithya, that's a different context. Okay, the entire manifest world itself is Mithya or Asat. But here within the Mithya Jagat, when we talk about Satyam and Asatyam or Sad and Asat, Ulladu, Iladu and all, even in Tamil they say, Uladai, Iladai, Uruvai, Aruvai, like this and all. So there you have to understand within the manifest world, whatever we think has a form and whatever is formless or which is not easily tangible, all that is nothing but this Brahman alone. So that has to be understood correctly here. So Sadasad is another way of expressing this Jagat, correct? So the Jagat itself can be expressed as all that has forms and all that has no forms, okay? So here Brahman is talked about as both Sat and Asat. That means the entire Jagat is nothing but a manifestation of this Brahman. So even when we talk about the Sisti Prakriya, Akasha is formless, understand that. So initially Akasha is the one which comes forth from this Brahman. Then from Akasha Vayu comes. From Vayu Agni comes. Agni is the first element which has a form. So Akasha and Vayu can be formless. They don't have any form. They can be invisible also, correct? So even if we look at it like that, Akasha and Vayu are Asat here, and from Agni onwards the elements can be called as Sat. So both all these things put together is called Sadasad, and that is nothing but this Brahman, and it is Varenyam. So you have to know this Brahman as something which is sought by everybody, okay, which is worship worthy, okay, which is worship worthy, which is worthy of worship by everyone, and which has to be anyway understood by everyone finally, because Varanam means even Vara and all we talk about in the context of marriage, correct? So it is a concept of if you want to choose something, so the act of choosing itself is called Varanam. And again Brahman also has to be chosen by you, correct? Only if you choose to know Brahman, you will have Brahman, you can attain this Brahman. But if you don't choose to know this Brahman, then you will have to be there only in this samsara. So Brahman also will reveal itself only to those who have chosen to know this Brahman. Even Bhagavan teaches Arjuna only after he explicitly says that I am your Shishya and you teach me, you please teach me, I have surrendered to you. Shishyasteham sadimam swam prapannam, he says in the second chapter. Till then Krishna was only giving general advice. He just said it is anarya justam, aswargyam, akirtikaram and all that. He was just scolding Arjuna almost. But afterwards Arjuna says, if I am your Shishya, I have taken refuge in you, please teach me. Then Krishna is teaching. Like that, this Varenyam means it is worthy of worship, but it is also something you have to choose. You have to choose to know this Brahman, and it is the only thing worth choosing again. So that way also we can understand that. That's why it is called Param also. Param. Okay. So for a Viveki, the only thing which is worth choosing, the one who has discrimination, for a Dhiraha or Viveki, the only thing which is worth worshipping or worth choosing is this Brahman. In fact, the glories of every other Devata are also of this Brahman alone. So that is why we can again make any Devata as our Ishta Devata, and we actually make that Devata exalted and make that Devata itself as Brahman. That is allowed in our tradition. Also the word Varenyam occurs in the Gayatri mantra also. So Tat Savitur Varenyam. There we start with Om, Bhurbhuva Swaha and all that. That Om itself is nothing but Bhuhu, Boha and Swaha. It can be looked upon as these three lokas. And in that Om itself is Varenyam, which is there as the Savita Devata also in that particular mantra. So in fact Gayatri mantra also is a Mahavakya, because in that mantra the Savita Devata is presented as nothing but Om and this Bhuhu, Bhuva, Swaha, all the different lokas, and that Devata is Varenyam, most worshipful. And then so we meditate upon that Devata, means here Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi. Dhimahi can be taken as we do japa or meditate upon, or also can be taken as making the effort to know the nature of this Devata. And Diyo Yonaha Prachodayat is there. So this same Savita Devata only is also obtained in our Dhi, in our intellect. Let that Devata impel me to make the right choices. So as a prayer also we can look at the Gayatri mantra, because when a child has Upanayana and starts chanting the Gayatri mantra, then it is a prayer. Prayer because our whole life is nothing but making different choices. And so every day we pray, let Isvara guide me to make the right choices in my life. So that way we can look upon it as a prayer. But for a Vedantic student, it is nothing but Nididhyasanam, because the Savita Devata, who is manifest as this Om and Bhuhu and Bhuva and Swaha, all the different lokas, is the same Savita Devata who is also there as the Antaryami and who is the one who is manifest in my intellect. And that is a Mahavakya again. So that itself can become a contemplation for a Vedantic student. So doing daily Sandhya Vandanam also is nothing but Nididhyasana for a student of Vedanta. We have to understand that. So the same word Varenyam also appears in the Gayatri mantra. So Tad Vijanat Param Prajanam. So Tad Vijnanat, sorry, not Vijanat, Tad Vijnanat Param Prajanam. So this Brahman, the knowledge of this Brahman alone is available, okay, for different beings. Whenever you are using any perception or inference, okay, this Brahman is not available. It is Param, means what here? It is the one which is there as the subject. It is the one which is there as the object also. That means it is not available just as an object of your perception or ignorance. So it is Vijnanat Param. Here Vijnana means any perceptual or inferential knowledge. Brahman is not an object of any particular perception or inference. It is not an object of any knowledge. But it is beyond that, means what? It is beyond both the object and subject. In fact, it is the Adhisthana for both the object and subject. And but it is available in each and every cognition as the invariable. So that is what here Tad Vijnanat Param. Okay, and that has to be, or sometimes we call Brahman as Aprameyaha, Ameyaha and all that, because it is not any one particular object. It is not an object of your knowledge. In fact, that is why this self-knowledge itself is very subtle, because we are used to knowing everything as an object. But here, you cannot know yourself as an object. So give up that idea. You are always the eternal subject. And you don't have to know yourself also, because you are self-revealing and self-existent. So this self-knowledge or Atma Jnana is nothing but giving up all the wrong notions about yourself. That alone is good enough. Because we identify ourselves with this body, mind and sense complex, and we suffer. So if you are able to give up all these identifications, and if you are able to appreciate all that is here is nothing but a manifestation of your Atma alone, and in that all that is here is Mithya, including your individuality. That is the knowledge we are talking about. And if you are able to appreciate that, then you have attained the Varishtam, the most exalted. Okay. So there are many things which are exalted for many different people, but nothing can beat Brahman. So Brahman is Nitya Shuddha Mukta Buddha Swabhavaha, and all we say in Shastra. It is always free, always enlightened, always pure. It is Ananta. It doesn't have any limitations, any wants. It is Purnaha. It is always full, whole. And that Brahman is Varishtam. It is free of all attributes, and it is obtaining as your very Atma. It is your self. And knowing this Brahman, you obtain this exalted state. State is again a very problematic word. So you become exalted. In fact, knowing Brahman, you yourself become the exalted. So etat janatha, there is a janatha verb is there. So the teacher is saying, hey students, learn this Brahman, know this Brahman. May you all know this Brahman as your very Swarupa. And that happens to be your very Swarupa happens to be nothing but this Brahman. And knowing that everything is as well known, because we have to connect it to the original question. The original question in this Upanishad is there anything there knowing which I can know everything else as well? Correct? Kasminnu bhagavo vijñāte sarvamidam vijñātam bhavati. So again the same question is answered here. So we will continue this in this section. Some interesting verses are there. We will continue it next week. Okay. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam
Om Purnamadah Purnamidam
Purnat Purnamudachyate
Purnat Purnamudachyate
Purnasya Purnamadaya
Purnasya Purnamadaya
Purnamevavasishyate
Purnamevavasishyate.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Harihi Om.
Harihi Om.